Hey everybody, welcome to Making the Game from Concept to Kickstarter. I'm your host Reece, and in this podcast we talk about the process of making our first game, Bloodthrone, from concept to design through the crowdfunding process, development, distribution, and more. So today I'm going to get caught up. We're going to do the Shaman in-depth as was requested, and I'll give you a quick update on the current state of the project. So this podcast actually goes with the article, The Shaman in Depth, which we did about a month ago. And I had family in town, so I wasn't able to record, but I wanted to get caught up on this for those of you who enjoy listening to it. First, project update. We hit a couple snags, nothing major. We've pretty much resolved, or we should have them resolved today or tomorrow. The hero boards, which I'll pop up on the screen for those of you watching, they weren't able to be cut, so we had to we didn't have to redesign them. We had to make them bigger, so that the machine that die cutter cuts because they're dual layer boards, so that you can put tokens in them. The internal spacing was too small, so the artist had to go back, upscale the hero boards, and then of course you have to redesign the art that goes on it so that it fits. It slowed us down by about a week. And then the rule books each had some images that weren't the right resolution. The layout guy is fixing that right now. And then one of the fonts that we used, I didn't even know this was a thing, but one of the fonts that we used had to have like another step taken because it wasn't printing correctly when we were going to the layout, to the mock-up stage. So then we had to go make that adjustment as well. Those slowed us down by about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think. But they're fixed, so it's not a major deal. I just want to be transparent. Everything else is progressing smoothly. To my knowledge, the token sheets are done. They're all, like, the spacing and everything is correct. And the cards shouldn't be an issue because we pre-measured all that. And that's a lot more straightforward of a process. So slowly but surely, we're trucking along, making sure everything's ready to go. But this is all feedback that we got from the factory when they were getting it ready to print. This is all part of the pre-production phase. All right, so let's jump in and talk about the Shaman. So the Shaman was is a really, really fun class, and this one did the most like morphing throughout the development process. So the Shaman, like kind of similarly to the Druid, is a nature magic user. Now the difference is the Druid in Bloodthrone is very different to what you would be used to in like D&D. So the Druid in Bloodthrone is DPS, more of a DPS mage. They basically summon storms and hurricanes and all this stuff, and we'll go into that when we talk about the Druid. That'll be the last one that we do for the core box. The Shaman does uses animal magic. So in the lore, they call on the spirits of animals, and they use it to buff their allies, or they can debuff their enemies. And what makes the Shaman unique beyond those two aspects is they can also summon an animal pet. So the Druid is the other summoner in the core box. Whereas the Druid summons magical creatures. It's a category of summons. The Shaman summons animals. And in the hero expansion, the Ranger can also summon animal companions. And then there's a class called the Artificer, which can summon clockwork summons. So and then in the hero expansion, there's different categories like, you have the bear, which is in the core box. In the hero expansion, you get the wolf. And then there's rules for other summons as well. And so anyone that can summon an animal keyword can summon one of those choices. And then as we expand, any creature that has the correct keywords, you can summon them as we go forward. But for now, in the core box, the Shaman can summon a bear. Originally, we had him shapeshift into the bear, because that's kind of more true to the lore. Same with the Druid. But in practice, what we found is that while that's cool, it's not cool to have a badass model like the Shaman. The Shaman, I think, is the cool, like, top 3, if not number 1, most awesome sculpts in terms of just like their overall, just like badass appeal. Like Ajax, the Shaman, in my opinion, Kijo, the Barbarian. But the shaman just looks amazing. He has like these bone claws and he's like a Viking dwarf. It's just, he looks amazing. And having that model on the table for like one turn and then turning it into a bear, it was just kind of like, well, what's the point? And then plus, from a economic point of view, making the molds for these models is really expensive. And I was like, if we're gonna have a model turn into a bear, like, why not just have him start as a bear? You know, then we don't have to pay to make another model. So, you know, we went around and around, and then we ended up coming back to having him summon the bear, which was just more fun because you get both models. And it just worked out better that way. It was a lot more fun. So that's kind of a bit of a background on the shaman. They speak to animal spirits, and mechanically, they buff, debuff, they summon. They can also buff their summon, which is relatively unique to them. And they can fight in melee really effectively if you want to. So from a big picture perspective, one of our goals was for every faction to have kind of like a melee wizard, at least one. So in the core box, you actually get two. The priest can be melee oriented if you want, like a cleric from D&D. When you make your own custom priest or custom shaman, you can have them put no points into offense and strictly just be buffing, debuffing, and then put all their focus all their energy on making their pet better for a shaman, or just being a healer and buffer for the priest. But every faction will have like some type of a melee wizard to mix things up. So the shaman can be really effective in melee if you want them to, especially the shaman that's in the core box, whose name is Kar Bjornsson. And he comes from a faction called the Delgri. They're the barbarians of Bloodthrone. You know, they're really cool. Like, just imagine like the Conan the Barbarians kind of a faction. They kind of lean into like a combination of Celtic and Norse, inspiration when we eventually get to that faction. So really cool character. He's like a dwarf berserker shaman guy. Really fun, and he looks amazing. In terms of equipment restrictions, the shaman's pretty straightforward. They basically have arcane archetype restrictions. So as a quick reminder, there's 3 class archetypes in Bloodthrone. There's martial, they're your warriors. There's skill. Those are the people they're the classes that have some kind of a shtick, like the alchemist makes potions, the bard sings songs, the inquisitor denies your abilities, etc., etc. They're kind of in between a wizard and a warrior, but they have some unique skill set that only they do. And then the arcane are your wizards, and they have the most innate equipment restrictions. Basically speaking, they can only take light equipment. So therefore, you don't really have a lot of extra restrictions because they already have so many. But what makes the shaman unique is that they can equip natural weapons, which means that they can take claws, right? Natural weapons, it's a keyword that basically means it's like a part of your body. The upside to natural weapons, if you have 2 identical natural keyword weapons, like for example, your fist, if you have a model that has just using their 2 fists, those have the natural weapon keywords, they automatically can dual wield. The downside is that you can't parry, because obviously if you're trying to block a sword or an axe or something with your hand, it's probably not going to go very well. So claws are weapons that you wear on your hands. And just mechanics-wise, they treat it as if it was, you're like Wolverine, basically. The upside to that is that claws are really high damage. They're damage 4 each. So the shaman is coming in with the heat. He has 2 damage 4 weapons, and then you always add power. As a quick rules reminder for dual wielding, you roll each hit separately, but then you add it all together when you get to the damage steps. You only add your power once. That's to keep it from being OP. But what makes dual wielding so powerful is that you get 2 chances to hit. Now, it's less likely that you hit with both, but it's also less likely that you miss with both. So dual wielding means you're usually going to hit. And then the trade-off was, for example, if you took a 2-handed weapon, every time you hit, you do full damage. 2-handed weapons are also better at penetrating armor. But if you miss, you do no damage, right? That's kind of the trade-off between the 2 offensive-oriented equipment loadouts, which is a 2-handed weapon or dual wielding. So the shaman, if he takes 2 claws, automatically can dual wield, can't parry, so your defense is going to be typically really low. But it's something unique that the shaman can do. And that's it for their equipment restrictions. Like I said, they can go up to light armor like all arcane classes can. And outside of natural weapons, they can go up to light equipment, or they can take arcane specific equipment. So if you wanted a shaman that wasn't melee oriented, they could have an arcane staff or a wand, keep their equipment really light, and then let their pet and their friends focus on actually fighting. And then they're just throwing buffs and debuffs all over the place. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into their abilities. So for most arcane classes, all their abilities are going to be spells. Not always, but generally speaking, that's what their cards are going to be. The shaman's class skill, again, a class skill, you always put it in your hero deck. Your hero deck are the special abilities that you get before a game. So you always get one general skill. You get your class ability, and then you get your heritage ability, which is like your racial. And then all heroes always get one baseline card. So you'll have at least 4 cards in your deck, even if you put no points into getting more skills. Typically, though, most heroes are going to have 2 to 3 cards that they put into their deck instead of just 1. So your deck is usually going to be 5 to 6, and then some, like wizards, sometimes will have like 8 in their deck because that's their shtick. So Spirit Claws is the class ability for the shaman. It's a really unique buff. So the shaman's bread and butter are summoning, blessings, and curses. Blessings are status effects that last the whole game unless removed. Curses are status effect that lasts the whole game unless removed. Obviously, curses are bad, blessings are good. You can only have one blessing or curse on you at a time. So if you put a blessing on one of your buddies and then you later put another blessing on them, the first one's removed and the next one's put on. And we make it really easy to keep track of on the hero boards, which are the boards you use when you're playing the game. Blessings are octagons and curses are squares. So the little token that goes with the ability can only go in one space on the board. Status effects are circular. Those can be positive or negative, but on the card, it will tell you if it is an affliction or a inspiration correspondingly. So Spirit Claws, what it does, it's a blessing, so it lasts all game unless it's removed. The recipient for every... it only affects natural weapons. I have to start there. So it can only affect claws, fists, and then, of course, most summons use natural weapons like the bear, for example, and the bear has 2 natural weapons themselves that are also damage 4. So between the shaman and their bear, they're throwing a ton of dice in melee, which is really fun because no one expects it. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. So the bear also has natural weapons, and you could also put it on a character that for some reason would just have their fists. But generally speaking, you're going to be putting it on yourself or you're going to be putting it on your bear. That's going to be the natural target for this. So what it does is for every successful action roll that you make, you add 1 red dice into the damage pool. So this is where it gets really crazy. Considering the joy of having dogs, every time someone walks by the house, they go crazy. So where it gets crazy is that if you hit with both attacks, you're putting in 2 red dice into the damage dice pool. And again, red dice go up to 3 damage. All other damage dice go up to 2. They don't have a 0. All other damage dice have at least 1 0 on them, typically 1. So there's a 0% chance they do no damage, and then they could do up to 3 damage. So they do more. They also ignore damage reduction, aka armor, and the red dice can't be blocked or parried. So red dice are like the most powerful, right? So what this means is that if, like, for example, the shaman puts it on himself, hits with both attacks, and then you add in your power as well, you could, like if you're power 2, like the shaman is in the core box, you could be rolling 10 damage dice and 2 red dice, which is nuts. That's like the same hitting power as the barbarian or the rogue. So a lot of people initially, when they play the game, they don't like the shaman because they don't play it correctly. They play them like a wizard where they're sitting back, throwing out these buffs, and the buffs are cool, but it's not like, strictly buffing and debuffing isn't going to just blow your hair back. It's really good, but it's until people actually go charge something with the buffed up shaman and just rip it to pieces. They're like, oh, wow. That's when you really get a feel for how fun and powerful the shaman is. This class ability has 2 potential upgrades. Hungry Spirit Claws. So the model affected by claws now heals 1 raw dice per successful action roll. So again, if you hit twice, you would heal 2 red. Or shared spirit claws where the shaman puts it on themselves and their summon. So I don't think I need to explain that. You can heal as you're ripping people apart, or you can buff your both models. It's very, very strong. A good thing to mention here before we go too much further, there is a full round action. Again, a full round action uses all your standard actions, excuse me. So you have to have at least 2 standard actions to do it, but it eats all of them. So if for some reason you had 3 actions, which is the max you can go up to, it would burn all of them. And then you could still do a simple action. But in summoning, for example, it's a ritual. All rituals are full round actions. All arcane classes only can do what's called arcane overload. And this is a full round action where you make 3 casting actions in 1 activation. And then on the next turn, you cannot use any casting actions. So this doesn't come up that often, but we did this because classes that really focus on buffing, especially, a lot of the times you don't want to spend like 2 turns just buffing because the game is only 6 turns. So for a class like the Shaman, you could do 3 buff spells on the first turn, including buffing yourself, and then on the next turn you go try and get into a fight. And the Summon Warbearer, pretty much all summons have a higher level feat that lets you do it as a single action instead of a full round action. So when you get to level 4 and then you can summon as 1 action, this is a good time to consider using Arcane Overload because you could summon, throw up 2 buffs, and you're ready to go rock and roll. You can't cast any spells the next turn, but so you get 1 less casting action over 2 turns, but you get 3 up front. So it's just something to keep in mind because the Shaman is one of the classes that uses it a lot. Same with the Transmuter, which is the similar like buffer debuffer class in the hero expansion. They often use it frequently in the first turn. In low levels, it doesn't come up as much, but in higher levels, when you have a ton of spells, this is something you'll often want to consider taking. Okay, so the primary skill tree of the Shaman is Blessings, which are game-long buffs, and they've got some really good ones. So at level 1, they get B-Side. B-Side is like bread and butter. It will be in your deck every single game. B-Side it's kind of a unique blessing, is that it puts the barrier status effect on the recipient. The barrier status effect is extremely good. The first time that the affected model takes damage, the damage is treated as 0, and then the blessing is, the barrier breaks and the blessing is off. This is one you'll be casting it like 3-4 times a game. It's just so useful. And before I go any further, really quickly, almost all beneficial spells are short range, and all offensive spells are medium range. So blessings are usually short range, and curses are usually medium. So there's a lot of ways to use this. Obviously, very obviously, you put it on someone and they can eat a hit. But there's a lot of things you might not think about that's really good. If your wizard has combat casting, which card does have combat casting, so anytime you have a wizard that's going to get anywhere near combat, you want to give them combat casting, which lets you cast spells while being engaged by an opposing model without triggering an attack of opportunity. You could cast this on yourself and then walk out of combat and take no damage, right? That's one good way to do it. If you're fighting a really, really nasty monster like the Berserker, who can one-shot a lot of heroes, throw this on them to at least get 1 more turn. It's extremely useful. Now, the downside, especially in PvP, is you put this on someone, your opponent's going to hit them with a wimpy attack, like a throwaway attack, just to break the barrier. A really good one is to hit them with like alchemical concoctions from the alchemist. So you throw it on them, the barrier treats the first damage as 0, but they still get the status effect, the DOT, so they'll still take damage. And then, since they are taking a DOT, you don't want to put the barrier back on them because it'll break when the DOT ticks again. So there's a lot of tricks around it, but suffice it to say, this is one of access to this ability is extremely, extremely useful. It's a very, very good ability. At level 2, they get Bull Strength. Bull Strength, game-long blessing. It gives the target model +1 power. And power is almost always added to your damage dice pool or your healing dice pool. So This is good not only for offense, but for healing as well. So someone like the priest really benefits from this because the priest is good in melee and healing. So they get double benefit out of it. But it's just all around a really, really useful ability. Every time someone attacks, they add one more die into the pool. Someone like the barbarian or the rogue who does a lot of damage. The shaman himself, although he's usually going to put spirit claws on himself, really benefit from this. And there's an upgrade for this, Animal Might, which gives you additional +1 power. That's when this blessing goes crazy, because giving a model +2 power is wild, right? Because, again, you're triggering this every time you make an attack. So if you're in combat, if you hit twice, you're adding in 2 or 4 extra dice. It's really, really powerful, especially over the more times you attack, the more powerful it gets. At level 4, you get one of their best blessings. This is Gazelle's Stride. So the target model gets +1 movement. I know it doesn't sound exciting, but it's extremely good in a game of movement, which Blood Throne is. Anything that it can increase your mobility is extremely useful. Put this on Downland the Rogue, and he goes up to movement 7, which is wild. It means he can almost reach. He can reach like 2/3 of the squares on the board in one activation, like move and then charge. At level 8. They get Falcon's Wings. This one gives the recipient the fly keyword. This is nuts. When you have the fly keyword, you can move through models and over terrain, ignoring it. So it makes you incredibly mobile. Again, you put this on someone who already has a decent movement speed, and they're quite literally flying around the tabletop. It's very strong. And again, as a reminder, Blood Throne, the board is very 3-dimensional. So you're burning movement points going up and down walls and towers and all this sort of stuff. With this, you move as if the board's a 2D. And then being able to go over models is huge, because if you can bypass another model without having to worry about taking or moving over your own models, it's just incredibly useful. Finally, at level 10, you get your ultimate. And this one is a doozy, as they all are. But this one's really good. You get Jaws the Beast at level 10. So the affected friendly model gains a unique blessing, again, meaning it's a all-game buff. And anytime a card says a unique status effect, it then will define it on the card. They get a free attack action every activation, so already it's amazing, because you just get an extra action. It does 3 damage dice plus power, and if it deals any damage, the recipient heals 2 raw dice. So this one is wild, right? You put this on someone who's already good in combat, someone's already going into combat, like the Barbarian or Ajax or the Rogue. It's really good on the characters that have more HP, because they can, healing, they get more time to take advantage of it. So they're just getting another hit, doing more damage, and healing themselves. It's really, really strong. So the secondary skill tree for the Shaman is Curses. And again, these are game-long debuffs. At level 1, they get Elephant's Agility. And this one's really strong. It might be too strong for level 1. But it gives them the Dazzled status effect, which halves their evasion. Evasion is like armor class if you're playing D&D. It's your default defense against non-special attacks. So someone tries to hit you, they go against evasion. A lot of special actions actually target evasion as well. It's the most commonly used defense in the game. So if you're fighting against a monster that has really high evasion, like the Noble of Ecstasy, it's one of the high-level monsters. She's really, really hard to hit. And she has a special rule that if you miss her, you fall down. It's so annoying. It's really, 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 really annoying, because you lose an action and you're vulnerable. You cast this spell on her, and it literally makes it twice as easy to hit. Or if you're playing against like a hero like Song of the Phoenix the Bard that has evasion 9, it's really hard to hit. This drops him down and halves it. So very powerful debuff. At level 6, they get Sloth Speed. This one's absolutely brutal. And it gives the target the Hobble status effect, again, for the whole game, and that halves your movement. So, brutal, right? So most heroes are movement 5 or 4, so it dramatically slows them down. It's a very good debuff. The tertiary skill tree is Summoning, and they get Summon Warbear. Summoning is a ritual action. That means it takes your whole turn. You can still do a simple action. Sorry, it's hot today. and I don't run the AC because it's too loud on the recording. For those watching, I'm sweating, so I'm just explaining that for those listening. You're like, what is he talking about? So that's the way summons work, is until you hit, usually it's level 4, where you can take a feat that makes it, it's called Prepared Summon, and then you summon it as a standard casting action. It'll burn your turn to summon it, so in most situations, you're always going to summon on the first turn to get the Warbear out into play, and the Warbear is quite good. So generally speaking, just assume that's what you're going to be doing for your first turn with the Shaman. And I'll go over the Warbear stats. I might as well go over them now. For those of you watching, you can see it, but the way summons work is they have half as many stat points as a hero. So they're not as good, but they're an expendable model. That's like the main reason that you use them. Is again, if you have a really nasty monster that somehow got around you, or the hero that was supposed to like take care of him didn't, you can just go throw your summon on him to at least slow him down to stop him for a turn. But the Warbear is actually quite good. So in addition to being a speed bump or just eating, like when you're playing against the monsters, a lot of them, they're AI, you can kind of predict what they're going to do. So you can throw the summon out there just to like take it on the chin and eat some attacks. Or he's really good at clearing out chaff. His accuracy is only 1. So it's, he's not the most accurate model. If he's attacking someone with high evasion, he's usually going to miss. But if he's going to low evasion models like the Biomancer or Ruin, it's an enemy monster wizard. Their evasion is 0, which is literally the lowest, but they have a lot of HP. The bear is perfect for that. The bear will rip them apart in a couple of rounds of combat because they do so much damage. But that's something you want to keep in mind. Like the summons are good, but they're not a hero, right? And they shouldn't be. They don't want them to outshine a hero, but they're an expendable model in most cases. So the bear has 18 hit points, which is quite a bit. Movement 4, 2 attacks, only accuracy 1, but power 2. So if they were to hit with both claws, they'd be throwing 11 dice, which is a lot. That's more than most heroes. Now, of course, with accuracy 1, you're not usually going to hit with both. But the bear can do quite a bit of damage and has enough HP where they're not going to just instantly die. Like, it's usually going to take two good hits to take them out. So the bear is quite useful. Quite a bit different than the Forest Guardian, which is the Druid's summon. And a lot different than the Wolf, which you get in the hero expansion. The Wolf is like the opposite of the bear, because the bear is only evasion 1, so he gets hit really easily. The Wolf is like super hard to hit, super fast, very accurate with 1 high power hit, but way less HP. So that gives you kind of an idea as we go further into the game. When you're playing a custom hero, you can be like, oh, instead of the bear, I might want to summon the wolf this game, which you can do as long as you have the model. So that's all the class skills of the spells for the Shaman. Also, they have a feat called Summon Greater Warbear, which they get at level 6. And that gives you a significant boost. All summons will have this feat option where they can upgrade their summon roughly halfway through the leveling a little bit above halfway through the leveling process. And this is because as everything starts scaling up and the monsters are getting more HP and all this stuff, the summons can really start to run out of gas. And if you want them to be able to actually fight and scale up with everybody else, this is a really good feat, and it's a significant improve. It's not like +1 to hit and +2 HP. It's a significant improvement. For the Warbear, let me pull it up. So the Warbear goes up to 25 HP, which is a lot. Accuracy goes to 3, so it's a 3x improvement. Their evasion goes to 2, the fortitude goes up by 2, their will goes up by 1, and their power goes up by 1. So it's like a significant improvement. So it's a strong consideration for the Warbear. So it makes them dramatically better, right? Like once you get the greater version of the summon, they can be quite nasty, especially if you're throwing like spirit claws on them and all this other stuff. Like the bear can be basically pretty close to a hero. At that, maybe not a melee hero, but better in melee than everything besides a melee hero at that point. And lastly, summons have at least 1 skill, and the Warbear has Warbear Hug, which instead of doing their normal attack, you make an attack that targets fortitude, And if it's successful, the target takes 2 red dice of damage, and they're pinned. Pin means you can't move or rotate in place. So, quite honestly, you don't use this one very often because the normal attack from the Warbear is so powerful. When you do use this, is if there's a monster that or an enemy model that has really high evasion, again like the Bard, but their fortitude is a lot lower. You hit them with this so that you don't whiff, because you have a much higher chance of hitting fortitude than evasion a lot of the times, and you hold them in place. So like, if there's a monster that you have no chance of killing with the bear, you're like, I'd rather just try and hold them in place for a turn. You can do that. It just gives you some flexibility for the bear. Okay, so for the feats for the Shaman, at level 2, the Shaman can take reaching spells, which gives you +1 range to your casting actions. Again, as we've explained in other podcasts, that doesn't sound super exciting, but the +1 square, especially when you're talking about a radius, is a lot of extra squares. But especially for offensive abilities, it lets you do it from outside of denial range. That's the main reason that you do it. And the other option is Hungry Spirit Claws. And what this does is whoever has the Spirit Claws can heal as they attack. I've tried my hardest to make these a tough choice every time. This one's kind of not. This one's not really a tough choice. The only way I think you would do this is if you built a custom Shaman that was not going to go into melee, like you weren't planning on using this. And like, for example, if you were planning on using the Wolf Pet, the Spirit Claws isn't as good for them. I could see in that instance not taking Hungry Spirit Claws and instead wanting to have more range. But this is one of the few times where I think the choice isn't as difficult as usual. At level 4, you can take Animal Might, which increased Bull's Might to +2, which is extremely, extremely good. Or you can take Prepared Summon, which is also extremely good. That means you summon as a standard action instead of a full round action. And again, why that's so good is not only does it let you summon and then do something else, if it's a normal casting action, you can also move cast. Now, it's a big risk, because if you fail the roll, you can't, summoning is a once per game ability, so then you might screw yourself. But if you want to take the chance, you can move cast. So it's like, it really, really changes what your first turn looks like with this. So this, unlike level 2, level 4 is an extremely difficult choice. Level 6, Powerful Blessings. Powerful Blessings, anytime a model attempts to remove one of your blessings, they do so with disadvantage. So if someone like the Inquisitor is trying to remove a blessing that you put on, the X symbol dice on the action dice are a critical failure. So it increases the odds that they fail by quite a bit. That way your blessings are harder to remove. Or you get Summon Greater Warbear, which I already explained. Those are both really good. And it depends on if you want to focus more on your summon or if you want your blessings to be harder to remove, obviously. Level 8, you get Pitiless Nature. If this model or their summon targets a model with one of this model's curses, they do so with advantage. So in non-legalese, you put a curse on somebody, and then you or your pet attack them, you get advantage. And advantage lets you change the result of one die or activate critical hits. So really good. The other choice at level 8 is Shared Spirit Claws, where when you cast it, it automatically goes on your summon and you. So if you, like, for example, Carr, the Shaman in the box, he would really like this one because he has claws and his bear has claws, and you just increase the amount of dice you could be thrown out there by a lot. It's very strong. So playing Carr, as I said, he's a lot of fun from a lore perspective. So the Delgri are like our barbarian faction, right? Like they're very close to nature. And their shamans have the ability to kind of astrally project themselves into the dream world, which they call Notgar. So he spends a lot of his time kind of like in this in this sort of trip-like state where he's exploring, the cosmos with his psyche, so to speak, the dream world. Not outer space, it's the dream world. And the Delgri use this for prophetic reasons so that they can kind of like see the future. Also, it lets them travel. They can travel through the dream world using Devithae. Devithae is the essence of sentient beings taken by force, which allows super powerful magic. And basically in Blood Throne, there's factions that use Devithae and those that oppose it. And then the factions that use it, they typically have some compelling reason to do so. Like the Seaborn, which are like the pirate faction, Dalnan, they can make their ships fly with this, which is an incredibly powerful thing. So they're like, whatever, we're going to use it, even if it's a horrible resource. The Delgri use it because they're like a raiding culture. And this allows them to punch through the dream world and raid anywhere. So it gives them this, it's incredibly powerful. Carr, when we were writing the character, I was like, think of like a hippie Viking. That's kind of like, this dude's like really tied into the spirit world. He talks to animals. It's kind of weird, but he's also this badass barbarian that can kick butt in combat. So he was really fun to write. And then again, he just looks so savage. Like he just looks amazing. Stats wise, again, he has 2 claws, so he hits really, really hard. His accuracy is 3, which is actually pretty good. It's better. It's as good as Dalnan. It's better than Ajax. But his metaphysics is only 2, which is low for a wizard. However, most of his spells he's casting on allies, so you don't even have to roll. So it's only when he's putting his curses on that this is going to come into play. And both of his curses affect fortitude. So you want to target someone that their fortitude is within reach. And again, there's other ways to get bonuses, but that's the trade-off, right? Like if you want an arcane class that's good at fighting, you're going to have to give up something else. So his casting isn't as good as like Tatiana, who's super high. She like never misses. It's still good. It's not bad, but there's more of a chance that he'll fail to get a spell off, but he's more likely to hit in combat. His evasion's only 1, which is really bad, and his HP is 18, so he's just like the bear. Although he does have a light armor, so he has damage reduction 1. His fortitude is 5, which is really good. His will is 4, which is really good. So he's easy to hit, but he can take a hit. Not a lot, right? 18, even with armor 1, it's still, you're going to go down pretty quick. And he cannot parry because he has natural weapons. So the trick with Carr is to get him into a combat that he is going to win. Try not to get stuck in with heavy hitting monsters because they will kill you. They will wear you down. Like you need him to go in to a situation where he's going to kill him in like 1 activation, or like somebody that comes after him but before the monster will go. Because he can't, like I said, he can take a hit. And then we'll talk about his heritage ability too, which is arguably its top 2 best in the game. But you don't like, he will melt pretty quick, right? So he hits like a truck. He's pretty resilient, but his defense is really not that great. So Carr is a mountain dwarf, and their heritage ability is called Tenacious. And in my opinion, it's top 2, top 3 best abilities in the game. Some of the playtesters thought it was the best. I think the Gnomes is the best, but this was definitely in the conversation. And just for a little bit of context, for mechanically, we made all the short kings have more powerful heritage abilities than the fast heritages. Like elves are the fastest. They have still a good heritage ability, but they're the least powerful. The shorties, the slow pokes, to incentivize wanting to use them, we gave them the best heritage abilities. So Tenacious means the first time you would be reduced to 0 HP, meaning the first time you would get knocked out. You do not get knocked out. You stay at 1 HP and you become stunned. So like this is stupid good. It means he has to be killed twice to be killed. If that makes sense. Like whenever you're fighting against someone with this rule, you have to be able to hit them twice or put on like a DOT or something onto them so that they'll auto die when they activate. In PvP, it's you have to think about, you have to go, okay, I can't just take him out with my last action because they won't die, and then my opponent will have a chance to heal him or whatever, or he'll hit me back and maybe kill me. So you have to bear that in mind. It's really, really good. Really, really good heritage ability. So that's one thing it gives you the ability to make a mistake with him and not instantly die, right? But if he's getting swarmed, like hilariously, one of the things that's worst against him are the goblin ambushers. They're these little tier 1 monsters that all dual wield. And if they gang up on you, which their AI script tries to get them to gang up on you, because he's only evasion 1, he just gets pummeled, right? So you want to make sure to put him in a position, like I said, to where he can kill the thing that he's going into, or where he's in a position where he's not going to get KO'd right away on the counterattack. For abilities on the first turn, you're going to want to summon until you have the opportunity to get prepared summon. If you want to take that, you may not. You're going to want to summon, and then after that, you're going to want to move cast buffs twice, right? So move cast is a move and then a cast. And again, we made that rule so that the wizards could keep up, because otherwise they couldn't. It has an increased cast chance of failure, but that's kind of the pattern that usually the first 2 turns with this character tend to be a little bit scripted. If someone comes in, if a monster's right on you right away, maybe not. Like you might have to charge in. He's actually really good at countercharging, like letting a tank take the charge, aggro the enemy, and then he goes in and kills him. But that's typically the way it's going to play until you get to level 4, in which case if you take prepared summon, it changes things quite a bit. And oftentimes you're going to go, okay, I'm going to summon, okay, then I'm going to put Spirit Claws on me or my bear, and then I'm going to throw another buff onto somebody else or maybe a curse. And then after that, just line him up, aim him at what he wants to go at. Again, anything with low evasion or medium to low evasion is where he and his bear are gonna shine. The 2 of them together will usually kill almost anything that they go into. It's a lot of fun. It's like big bear, little bear. Let's go. Yeah, he's just really fun to play. The only other thing that's limiting is that he is movement 4. So that does feel quite limiting. When you get to, let me double check, I believe it's level 3. Yeah, at level 3, there's a general feat available to all classes called Long Stride. You can go +1 movement. And then the only other limitation for Carr is that he will really want more skills. So it's kind of this like push and pull between trying to give him more spells, and there's equipment that you can get that will give you more skills. And then at level 3 and level 7, you can take an additional skill. It's a general feat. So that's kind of the push and pull. That's like the hard part. Anytime you have a hero or a class that wants to do 2 things that are not complementary, like fighting and casting spells or whatever, that's all. You always feel starved for points, right? So that's the trade-off, right? You want to kind of think that through when you're planning how to level them up. When you're playing against Carr, he's not that hard to counter, and I don't mean that as a diss, because he's awesome. And the Shaman is one of these classes that people kind of go like, eh. And then when they play him and they go in and they just start shredding people in combat, they're like, this guy's awesome. They become quite popular. Because he's easy to hit, he's quite vulnerable to characters like Grey Wolf, for example, or the Rogue, Downin, who's very fast and does a lot of damage. If you can get line of sight to him, you start chucking lots of attacks at him. So when you're playing like in that kind of a dynamic with Carr, you want to try and stay out of line of sight, or maybe even put barrier on yourself first so you can get into position. Eat an attack in PvP. A lot of times people just won't attack you when you have it on. Then switch to Spirit Claws and go in and hit somebody. You just have to be kind of creative with them. And then, of course, as with all arcane classes, the Inquisitor is your bane, because they can shut down your spells and take away your blessings and curses. But yeah, so with Carr, you want to hit him from a distance, or go into him with somebody like Ajax that has got such high defenses that the Shaman's probably going to miss, and then you can block with your shield so that they just don't really do much damage to you. The Shaman really wants to go into more vulnerable targets where they just one-shot him. So yeah, that's the Shaman. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, we did hit a couple delays with the hero boards. We had to make them bigger by a ½ inch on both dimensions because the blade couldn't cut as close as we wanted it to, so that was annoying. We had to redo all the art, but we should be done by tonight. And then we're updating the books to increase the resolution on some of the images, which for whatever reason wasn't correct. A couple like the borders on the page we had to change from like CMYK to RGB, and then we had to fix one of the fonts. But again, that should be done tonight. But it did slow us down, I think, a week and a half, 2 weeks. But like I said, not the end of the world. It's just annoying. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're excited to play the Shaman. I'm doing the Priest next, and then after that, we'll do the Druid to finish up all the classes in the core box.